I want to introduce or reintroduce the alpha independent model. But first, just a little bit about alpha and create a base layer of understanding about what Forms Academy is. So Forms or alpha was never conceived as a club in the conventional sense. It was conceived as a developmental standard. From the beginning, the impetus behind alpha was simple and uncompromising: to grow and develop players who are highly competent, highly capable, and highly technical, or a term you may hear me say frequently is functionally technical, to a level where they can survive and succeed in any environment at the highest levels anywhere in the world. The goal was to create, again, highly technical and adaptable players, not players optimized for specific leagues or optimized for a specific coach or a system, but rather players whose underlying capacities and qualities travel with them. That goal immediately dictates the model. And once you accept that premise, if it resonates with you, everything else becomes clear. If you take an honest look at football all around the world played at the highest level, one thing should stand out fairly quickly. The game is not uniform. It's adversarial, it's volatile, it's culturally distinct, and players who succeed globally are not the ones who are fitted perfectly into a single environment, into a single box. They're the ones whose technical base, perceptual stability, and decision-making hold up when conditions change. That's why the alpha independent model exists. Universality cannot be trained inside narrow constraints. It's something we understand very, very clearly. So a player who depends on a specific structure, rhythm, tactical scaffolding, those players are fragile. A player whose game is built on technical autonomy and perceptual control becomes the player that's portable or adaptable. And that's what Forms optimizes for. We want highly technical, adaptable players. So over the years of observation, one conclusion has become unavoidable. Development does not fail because players lack effort. It does not fail because they lack access or opportunity, despite what the public narrative may be. Ultimately, it fails because the learning environment is fragmented. Skill acquisition is path dependent. The nervous system does not integrate contradictory inputs gracefully. It competes between them. So when players are exposed to multiple developmental languages, conflicting cues, different priorities, progress will slow. Execution will become unstable, and performance will break under the pressure. The alpha independent model Forms methodology addresses this directly, and we always have done so by centralizing developmental authority and maintaining a single coherent learning system or curriculum across all the stages. So this is not ideological. This is a practical response to how humans learn complex motor skills. This is where independence matters, where our independence matters. Teams, leagues, competitive structures all serve important functions. They are necessary for application, stress exposure, and evaluation, but they are not optimal engines for foundational development. Foundational development requires uneven timelines. It requires tolerance for instability. It requires repetition without outcome pressure. It requires protection from premature role fixation. So the alpha independent model does not reject the concept of teams or competition, but it places them in their proper role. Teams become testing environments, not developmental drivers. Independence allows development to remain stable while competition varies. Without that independence, development is forced to bend to external constraints that have little to do with long-term player growth. So this perspective is not theoretical. It is informed by lived exposure. So over the last 7 years, and more intensely through sustained, hyper-focused immersion in the global football ecosystem, patterns emerge that cannot be unseen. Living and working in Madrid over the past 2 years has accelerated that clarity for me. Madrid is not unique because of its clubs alone. It's unique because it's an environment where technical insufficiency is exposed immediately. Tactical understanding is assumed, not taught early. Adaptability is expected, not praised. Players who survive here, or players who survive anywhere at the highest level, are not protected by systems. They're protected by their own competence. And I can give you multiple personal examples where this is the case. Through relationships with coaches, academies, trainers, and football minds across cultures and competitive contexts, the same conclusion tends to repeat itself. Early technical autonomy and perceptual stability are non-negotiable. Systems will change, coaches will certainly change, countries may change, but the player themselves, the player's autonomy should remain, and it will remain. Alpha's model reflects that reality. Most developmental systems appear functional until a transition point. The shift to football 11 or 11v11 is the most revealing example. This is where priorities often change abruptly. Tactical load increases. Technical tolerance drops. Selection becomes outcome-driven. And when the developmental logic shifts at this point or at this moment, earlier gains are not built upon. They tend to be overwritten. So the alpha independent model exists to protect continuity across transitions, ensuring that what is built in earlier stages, what we've invested so many years in, remains functional as the game scales. The objective ultimately is not to produce players who fit a particular system. The objective rather is to produce players who can enter any system at any stage and then solve for the problems that come about. Adaptability is not taught through instructions. That's a key point within the methodology. It emerges when technical execution is automated. Perception is stable and the decision-making is no longer burdened by fear or overload, which is what we spend so many years working on at the younger ages. So the alpha independent model prioritizes these foundations deliberately, even when that choice is less convenient or less immediately legible to the outside world. So the point, stated clearly, is this. Alpha's independent is not a rejection of other pathways. It's an acknowledgement of constraints and a deliberate choice to optimize for what matters most. When the learning environment is controlled, development compounds. When the development compounds, players become adaptable. And when players are adaptable, pathways remain open, even globally. That's the logic behind the alpha independent model. That's the logic behind Form's Academy and Form's methodology. It's not necessarily a branding or affiliation or ideology. It's systems thinking applied to human development, informed by experience and anchored to the realities of the highest levels of the game. Forms is special, always has been, and for the longest time, it was misunderstood. But we're here to pursue the apex of youth development in the greatest game.